She was completely at ease around him. And that ease was the thing that ended it. Not the arguments. Not the distance. Not anything he did wrong in the obvious sense. The ease itself, the warmth, the comfort, the total relaxation she felt in his presence, was the quiet announcement that she had already moved him into a category from which almost no man ever returns. The category of someone safe. Someone familiar. Someone she would never lose sleep over, never rearrange her world for, never feel the particular aliveness that comes from being in the company of a man she is not entirely certain she has. He thought her comfort was the destination. He had worked toward it, consciously, carefully, through all the patience and availability and emotional attentiveness that he believed a serious man brings to a relationship worth keeping. He made her feel safe. He made her feel seen. He removed the anxiety of uncertainty from her experience of him entirely. And in doing so, he removed something else. Something he didn't know he was removing until it was too late to recover. She stopped being impressed. She never stopped being comfortable. And those two things are not the same. Picture this. She's laughing. Genuinely. Leaning back, completely unbothered. Relaxed in the way a person is relaxed around someone they trust without question. He watches her laugh and feels something that should feel like success. She is happy, she is at ease, she is completely open, and underneath that feeling, without his conscious awareness, the erosion has already been underway for months. Because she laughs at the things he says without being surprised by them. She leans in without a question in her eyes. She is comfortable the way you are comfortable in a room you've been in 1,000 times. And she is slowly, without deciding to, beginning to want to be somewhere else. What follows is the exact mechanism behind how comfort becomes the enemy of desire, and what a man can actually do about it. You have been in this position. Even if you have not named it, you have felt its specific texture. You did everything that a thoughtful, invested man does. You showed up consistently. You were warm when warmth was needed and steady when steadiness mattered. You learned her the way men who take things seriously learn the person they are, with her preferences, her sensitivities, her history, the particular ways she needed to be handled with care. You became someone she trusted entirely. Someone she never had to perform for. Someone who made her feel safe in the way that, by every conventional measure, you are supposed to make the person you care about feel. And somewhere in the middle of all that safety, something shifted. Not dramatically. Not with a confrontation. Something quiet and invisible, a gradual quality change in how she engaged with you. Still warm on the surface. Still present. But something in the particular energy of her presence had changed. She was comfortable. She was not magnetized. You felt it before you could name it. The slight flatness in her enthusiasm. The way conversation had stopped having the quality of two people discovering each other and started having the quality of two people reviewing the familiar. The way she laughed at the things you said without anything in her eyes that suggested you had surprised her. A man sits across from a woman he has spent 2 years making feel completely safe. She is relaxed, laughing, leaning back, entirely at ease. He has everything he was trying to create. And yet he can feel, in the specific quality of her ease, that it is the ease of a woman who is no longer fully present in the relationship. She is comfortable the way people are comfortable in situations they are not choosing actively, because the choosing has already happened and the outcome has already been filed. She was not unhappy with him. She had simply stopped being interested in him, and the comfort he had built so carefully had accelerated the process. The brutal contrast. The men she could not stop thinking about were never the ones who made her feel safest. The mechanism behind why this is consistent, and why comfort without challenge eventually destroys desire, is next. The mechanism operates through a principle that most men are never clearly handed. Familiarity suppresses arousal. This is not a metaphor. It is a neurological reality, one that applies to every form of engagement, not just romantic. The human brain is wired to respond most intensely to novelty, unpredictability, and the slight productive uncertainty that comes from an outcome not yet secured. When those conditions are present, the nervous system stays engaged. When they disappear, when the outcome is fully secured, the person fully known, the situation fully predicted, the intensity of engagement decreases automatically. A woman's interest in a man is not exempt from this mechanism. Her respect, the particular kind that produces sustained desire, not just fondness, requires something the fully comfortable dynamic has eliminated. A residual uncertainty about him that keeps her attention oriented toward the question of who he actually is. Call this the distinction collapse. The moment a man has made himself so completely known, so entirely available, so thoroughly safe, his distinctiveness as a person disappears from her perception. He becomes an understood quantity, a resolved question, and resolved questions do not compel. They sit in the background, comfortable and quiet, while the unresolved ones continue to draw attention. Contrast this clearly. Two men. The first has spent months making himself entirely legible to her. Fully transparent, consistently warm, never surprising, always available. She knows what he thinks, how he feels, what he will do in every situation before he does it. The second man is engaged, warm, genuinely caring, but remains slightly resistant to full comprehension. He says something occasionally that she did not expect. He holds a position she cannot easily move. He is still, after months, not fully mapped. She thinks about the second man more. Not because he is colder or more distant, because there is still something in him she is working to understand. Picture her in a conversation with that second man. He says something that doesn't go where she expected it to go. She goes slightly still. Something in her attention sharpens. He didn't manufacture mystery. He maintained selfhood. And selfhood, by its nature, is never fully predictable. What this distinction collapse looks like in the daily texture of a real relationship, in the specific moments where comfort quietly converts into the quiet death of desire, is the section that makes this impossible to dismiss. It never arrives with an announcement. It arrives in the accumulation of small moments that, individually, seem like nothing. It shows up in how she tells a story about her week. She is animated, specific, clearly engaged in what she's recounting, but the animation is directed slightly past him. She is not telling him the story in a way that suggests she is curious about how it will land with him specifically. She is recounting an event the way people recount events to someone they are comfortable with, not to someone they are trying to impress or be seen by. He is no longer someone she is trying to be seen by. He is someone she is comfortable being around. The difference is the entire distance between desire and habit. It shows up in conflict or in the absence of it. She no longer argues with him the way she used to, with the particular heat of someone who cares about the outcome. The arguments have become more procedural. Complaints delivered, acknowledged, absorbed. There is no fight in it. No urgency. Because urgency requires the fear of losing something. And she no longer has that fear. A woman who has stopped being afraid of losing a man has already, in the most important sense, let him go. It shows up most visibly when something or someone new enters the periphery of her attention. He mentions a colleague at work, a man she's never met, someone new in her professional orbit. Something shifts in the quality of her attention. Not dramatically, but perceptibly. She asks a follow-up question. There is a slight aliveness in the conversation that was not present 30 seconds before. He is familiar. The unknown man is interesting. And she has no defense against the simple neurological reality that interesting is more compelling than familiar. The reframe that reorganizes the picture entirely. Her comfort with him was never the goal. Her comfort was the symptom of the goal having been overachieved, of a man having made himself so safe, so known, so entirely without friction, that her nervous system filed him in the resolved category and stopped paying full attention. The safety he built so carefully was not the foundation of desire. It was the slow replacement of it. What this reveals about the nature of genuine respect, and how dramatically it differs from comfort, is the section this entire video was built to reach. Here is the truth that most men encounter only after the relationship has already closed around them, and it requires honest reception. Comfort and respect are not on a spectrum. They are not different quantities of the same substance, where enough comfort eventually becomes respect. They are produced by different conditions, generate different neurological responses, and sustain different relationship structures. A man can accumulate decades of comfort without a gram of genuine respect being produced. And a man who generates profound respect may never quite manage to be easy to be around, because the quality that produces respect and the quality that produces ease are, in many cases, in direct tension. Respect, at its psychological foundation, is produced by a specific experience. The encounter with something that is difficult to fully contain. Person whose judgment carries weight, whose position holds under pressure, whose presence requires something of the people around them, not through demand, but through the simple reality of being undeniably, substantively themselves. A woman respects a man she cannot fully predict. She is comfortable with a man she can. That is the line that generates debate. But it holds. And the uncomfortable version of that truth, the version that asks something of the man receiving it, is this: if she is completely comfortable with you, some part of the version of you she is comfortable with has stopped being challenging enough to sustain her regard. Not because challenge is a performance. Not because difficulty is attractive. Because a man who is genuinely, structurally himself, who has positions that hold, standards that persist, a world that continues when she is not orienting herself toward his comfort, that man is, by definition, not fully predictable. Not fully mappable. Not resolvable into the category of known, safe, and filed. Picture a man she has known for 3 years. She trusts him completely. She enjoys his company. She tells him things she doesn't tell others. She is more at ease with him than with anyone in her life. And she has not felt anything resembling desire toward him in 18 months. He has become, without knowing it, her most trusted companion and her least compelling presence. She does not know how to explain the contradiction. She experiences it as guilt, as confusion, as the suspicion that something is wrong with her for not wanting what she clearly values. Nothing is wrong with her. Something is structurally absent in the dynamic. The thing that has been absent, the precise quality whose removal produces the contradiction she feels, is what the rest of this video exists to name. She is comfortable because he made himself completely safe. She lost respect because he made himself completely knowable. And you cannot hold both of those simultaneously for long. The shift is not about becoming difficult. That is the first misreading men make when they encounter this truth, and it leads nowhere useful. Manufactured difficulty is a performance. Performances read as performances. She feels the effort behind them, and the effort itself signals the very insecurity the man was trying to conceal. The shift is in what a man prioritizes when he is with her, and more importantly, when he is not. The man who produces genuine respect is not a man who has learned to strategically withhold warmth or engineer uncertainty. He is a man who has a full life, a direction, a discipline, a set of standards that matter to him independent of whether she is watching, and that fullness means his presence has weight because his absence is genuinely occupied. He says things she did not predict because he is actually thinking, not managing her reactions. He holds positions under her disagreement because the positions are actually his. He is occasionally inconvenient because his life has requirements that exist independently of her comfort. She is not comfortable around that man the way she is comfortable around furniture. She is comfortable in the specific, alive way that comes from being around someone real. Contrast the man who has engineered total ease with the man who is genuinely himself. The first has worked to remove every friction. The second has simply refused to remove himself. Both are warm. One is compelling. The other is invisible in the way that everything familiar becomes invisible. The corrective is structural, not behavioral. A man who develops a relationship with his own standards, his own judgment, his own direction, who becomes genuinely occupied with his own becoming, does not need to manufacture mystery. He simply stops being fully resolvable. If this is reaching something real in your own experience, the specific feeling of having been too comfortable, too available, too entirely known, stay with it. Because what follows is the part that actually asks something of you. The warning is this: the distinction between comfort and respect does not become visible until it is already expensive to correct. A man can live inside a relationship for years, receiving warmth and ease and the particular contentment of being someone she trusts, and never realize that the respect she felt for him in the beginning has been quietly, incrementally replaced by the comfortable regard she has for everything familiar that causes her no difficulty. The relationship continues. The comfort continues. The respect does not. And then something happens, a confrontation, a comparison, an encounter with a man who does challenge her slightly, who is not entirely predictable, who holds his ground in the specific way that registers not as aggression but as presence. And she feels something she had stopped feeling for the man she chose. She does not understand it. She experiences it as a betrayal of her own values. But it is not betrayal. It is a neurological response to a condition she had stopped encountering inside her relationship. He stopped being interesting to her nervous system. He was still valued. He was no longer desired. Picture a man at 40 who has been in a comfortable relationship for 8 years. He has never been unfaithful. He has never been unkind. He has been steady, consistent, safe, every quality he was told a good partner should be. And she leaves, not in anger, not for someone else, just with the quiet devastation of a woman who has finally admitted to herself that she cannot remember the last time she felt anything that resembled desire in his direction. He cannot understand it. He gave her everything she asked for. He made her safe in every way. He never made her feel the particular aliveness of being with someone she was not entirely certain of. What becomes possible when a man rebuilds the quality of his presence, when he stops prioritizing her ease above his own identity, is not a guarantee of any particular relationship outcome. It is the guarantee of being, finally, someone worth keeping. This is the full truth, assembled clearly and without softening. Comfort is not the enemy of love. Comfort is the enemy of desire. And in a relationship where desire is expected to coexist with commitment, a man who has built total comfort without maintaining genuine respect has constructed something that looks like intimacy but functions like furniture. Present, functional, taken entirely for granted. The distinction costs men years. It costs them relationships they genuinely valued. It costs them the particular wound of watching someone leave not because they failed to care, but because they cared in a direction that produced ease rather than regard. Because they worked toward safety when they should have been maintaining selfhood. Because they made her completely comfortable at the cost of making themselves completely knowable. And completely knowable is the one thing that cannot sustain desire. You were not too available. You were too resolved. She filed you. And filed men don't get chosen, they get kept until they don't. The correction is not cruelty. It is not coldness. It is not the performance of unavailability. It is the return to being genuinely someone, a man with his own direction, his own standards, his own interior life that does not pause and reorganize itself around her comfort as its primary purpose. A man who is warm because he chooses to be, not because the warmth is all he has. A man who is available without being ambient. That man is not harder to love. He is, for the first time in many relationships, actually lovable in the specific way that produces staying rather than settling. If this channel is delivering the kind of clarity that most places refuse to offer, the truth behind the dynamic, not just the surface of it, subscribe. More of this is coming, and none of it will be comfortable. If you know a man who is confused about why a relationship that felt warm ended cold, share this with him. He has probably never heard the distinction named this clearly. Leave a comment with this. What was the moment you realized she was comfortable with you but no longer impressed by you? And how long had that been true before you noticed? Because that gap between the moment it shifted and the moment you saw it is the entire cost of this particular confusion. She stayed until she didn't have to anymore. That's what comfort without respect always becomes.